All right. Hey, everyone. Okay, so we're going to get into chapter 10 today of your textbook on advertising, which is a nice carryover from us talking about persuasion, since advertising, of course, is a way of persuading people, usually to buy something, right? Although not always. We'll talk about that later. Well, it's all about buying things, but um, the first and arguably the most important lesson that I think was in this chapter, and I agree with the authors that this is like super important, is something that you might already know, which is basically how like the economy of advertising, like what is it that how does advertising make money, and how do people make money off of advertising and things like that. And the way I see it, the easiest way to sort of summarize it is attention equals money. And this has always been the case. So a lot of you may be familiar with this because this isn't like something that is something new to social media or anything like that. I mean, this is how it's been working since newspapers, for instance, started having advertisements in it. Basically, advertisers will pay some sort of media platform, maybe a newspaper, maybe a magazine, maybe a local news show, or some sort of network. They pay platforms to feature their advertisement, but they're going to be willing to pay more money if that platform can guarantee more attention, more viewers, right? So this is why Super Bowl advertisements cost a lot of money. They might cost a lot of money to make just because, advertisers want to impress people, of course, but they're expensive because uh, advertisers understand that everybody is watching the Super Bowl. Therefore, there's going to be a lot of attention to their advertisements. Therefore, right, they're willing to spend more money in order for a spot on the Super Bowl. But attention, oopsie, sorry. But attention can be quantified in terms of all different types of things. So yeah, maybe it's how many people you're going to be watching, how many people are going to be watching the Super Bowl. But if it's a new media environment, right, maybe it's clicks. We've talked about clickbait in the past. The whole point is to bait people into those clicks. Whether or not that's a good metric of attention, that can be up for debate. That would make a really good discussion board post, but I didn't do that this week anyway. But still, it's irrelevant. It's just a way to sort of quantify how much attention you're getting, therefore how much you should charge for the advertisement. Time spent on a website. I know magazines, you might not know this, but magazines actually, when they're factoring in how many people are going to see an advertisement, it's not just how many people have a subscription to it. They assume that if somebody gets a magazine, maybe it'll just like hang out in their bathroom. And then they're like, oh, well, if it hangs out in the bathroom, then it's not just one person that's going to see it. It's probably going to be like a few people in the family or something like that. So, okay. So that's the basic economic model of advertising. These are just some more examples of this. The only one I want to point out, because I think they're all kind of self-explanatory here, is this is called a banner ad. And the reason I like to bring up banner ads is because it's kind of like this old, it's like it in my opinion, it's like before advertisers sort of realized that the internet was a place for interactive engagement, they were always trying to apply this old model of advertising, like what they applied to magazine ads or billboards. I mean, think about what a billboard is, right? It's just like you're driving down the hallway. Please don't drive down the hallway. You're driving down the highway and there's a huge billboard, and you just see it for a second and you get like a snapshot of of whatever advertisement, like some sort of accident attorney is the one I always notice. Not that I need that or anything, but for some reason it just seems like there's a lot of accident attorneys who like to advertise on billboards. And that works, right? How else are you supposed to advertise on the highway? But I think it's funny that, like banner ads are essentially like the billboard of the internet. Although to be fair, you're usually not going quite as fast. You can like stop and linger and stuff like that. But I think it's a great example of how these old models of advertising still sort of like, leaked into even new media environments. And it is something I want you to think about, like with this pink statement down here, which is like, what are some of the challenges of trying to implement just like a classic did people see it model with advertising in new media environments. And maybe if there's not even challenges, ask yourself, like, is that really the best way to sort of sell a product in an environment when there could be so much more to do? And I always say this, I'm sorry, but if we were having like a normal class where we were all meeting and I could show you videos and things like that without violating copyright laws for posting it on YouTube, I would show you an older documentary that I think is still really relevant that talks about how the new media environments, the good advertising really can harness all different types of affordances in the environment. So really nowadays, advertisers can get the people they're targeting in their advertisement to advertise for them. You'll actually be sharing advertisements yourself, kind of like working for the advertisers. But you don't have to know that for now. It's just food for thought. But back to, okay, so one of the challenges that we do want to talk about for new media environments, and this isn't just the internet, but, digital technologies give people more control over what they see and what they don't. So one of the implications of this, of course, is that people can just skip advertisements. And I mean, in theory, like, this was also true even when we had like VCRs or something back in the 80s. But think about like one of the biggest things about having a DVR, a digital recording device, was that people could just fast forward through ads. It used to be that people would maybe use ad time to like, they're watching a show and then they're like, oh gosh, I've got 2.5 minutes while the commercials are on to like run to the kitchen, get some more snacks and then like run back or whatever. But now it's like, it's not even a thing. You just fast forward through it. You don't see it at all. So what are some of the ways that people get around the fact that advertisers can't really force us to watch their ads anymore? Well, one of them is subscriptions. We're seeing a lot more subscription services. So this is how streaming services generate revenue. So maybe, for instance, they're not, Netflix isn't showing you commercials. I mean, it does show you commercials for programs, but it's not like it's going to interrupt your streaming service or your streaming show in order for you to see a commercial. Now, Hulu, yeah, I'm sure or it used to, we actually opted out, which is the point. Hulu will show you like little commercials, and gosh, it's like water torture because it'll be the same commercial each time, unless you like pay a little bit of money for a higher subscription service so you can opt out. So there's like those types of things. So it's not all, everybody just has the same sort of model, but what I want you to understand about it is like, what this means is that it means that the platform is not as beholden to advertisers in the same way. So their revenue is coming from slightly different places, or it's slightly different. There's a different distribution. And we aren't going to get into it in this class, but I think it's an important thing to know, because what that means is that the content might change. If, for instance, Netflix doesn't have to be concerned about what sort of content is paired with what sort of commercial, there might be potentially a little bit more flexibility in what sort of content they can offer. But the other thing that happens is we see a lot more of product placement or embedded marketing. And the truth is this, I used to teach this class and I used to say that there's a difference between product placement and embedded marketing. And I still believe that. But to keep it simple, we'll just talk about them as the same thing for now. Globally speaking, it's really when instead of having like a separate commercial, if you're watching an entertainment show, the product is integrated in the story. So like a great example, if any of you have seen Stranger Things, like Eggo waffles was like a big thing. One of the main characters was really into them. We have Wednesday Addams like flashing a Taco Bell thing, right? It's like part of the story. Barbie, the movie, I mean, that's like the whole movie is made about a product. Like, I don't think you can get it. I don't even think it's fair to call that embedded marketing. It's like the movie is embedded in the marketing, like not the marketing's embedded in the movie, I mean, so there are all these great examples of where advertisers have to get very creative about sort of seamlessly integrating whatever the product is with whatever you're interested in watching. So then you don't even want to fast forward through it, right? Or skip it. But there are these other ways that advertisers are going to have to now figure out who was exposed to different things. Like for instance, if they are using product placement, that's a really hard thing to know. Like, well, how many people actually saw it? At the same time, though, they know if it's a popular TV show, there's a good chance that they're going to see the Taco Bell label or whatever. But other things, one of them I mentioned before. One of the ways that advertisers figure out, like, okay, are people seeing my ad? One of them is the click-through rate. And this is why, by the way, sometimes have you ever like clicked on something on the internet, like to see like a slideshow? So it's like maybe the slideshow is like the 10, okay, I'm a chicken person, so I can't help this, like the 10 most beautiful chickens in the world. But then they don't just show you 10 beautiful chickens. It's like they show you one beautiful chicken, and then you click to the next one, and then you click to the next one. That's a sneaky way of upping the click rate, right? And that, again, is one of these ways that whatever platform you're viewing it on, BuzzFeed or whatever, is going to go back to the advertisers and say, like, look how many people clicked. It doesn't really matter it doesn't really matter that they're probably not like persuaded by what they're seeing, but it's a metric of like, ooh, these are how much attention we got. Sponsored links. So this is when companies pay search engines to list their products and services first when people search for different types of keywords. So this is why, for instance, when you do a Google search, a couple things happen. First of all, you'll see like at the very top, there'll be like sponsored links, right? So like it literally says, I know that's like the term, but like it'll literally say on there like sponsored. And a lot of times you don't care, because if you're just like, I don't know, doing a search for anthropology or Crate and Barrel or like whatever, you're probably looking for the website, so you don't care if it's sponsored or not. But that does mean that that company has paid for that spot. But there's all sorts of search engine optimization sort of strategies, some of them involving pay and some of them not, that helps people get their site seen before others. And then, of course, there's ad targeting. And we've talked about this in past lectures before. This is where social media sites use big data to choose, like to target, to choose, to narrowcast to specific people who's going to see a certain ad in their newsfeed. So this is like, if Facebook is, and they do this for political advertising too. So if Facebook, so I get, this is kind of gross, this might be TMI, but I keep getting advertisements for like this like full body deodorant. I don't know why, they're just like everywhere on my news feed. And they must know I stink. No, but I'm not sure, but I do wonder, I have wondered, I was like, I wonder if because of my age group, or maybe they're targeting women, maybe they're targeting white women, but maybe also there are things that I've clicked on the past, beauty products, perfumes, like sort of tangential things that I've shown that I'm interested in, that all go into that big data profile. And then the social media sites, Instagram, whoever is able to target that advertisement at me, and we all know, I mean, there's like funny examples of how like they don't always get it right too, but you can kind of tell like, okay, they're making some assumptions here. But so that's ad targeting with big data. Okay, this is actually the last thing I want to talk about. I know, isn't that crazy? There's only like 6 slides. But look how I'm stretching it out anyway. And this is another example of like, I'm not going to make you watch these things, but I would encourage you to do so. These are all examples. And actually this one, if the one with the mountaineer here, this is an ad that if you want to, I have it as an option to respond to your on your discussion board this week. This is a Publix commercial. This is like an old BP gasoline commercial, or what? Well, okay, that's what I'm going to spoil it. And even though all of these companies sell things, like you could argue, like, well, WVU sells education, sort of. That's kind of a weird. Sorry, shh, Fergus, stop it. Sorry. BP sells gasoline, and Publix sells groceries. Publix, by the way, a lot of you probably have never been to a Publix or don't know of it. It's like a thing in the South. It's like the best grocery store ever. Maybe it's not like a Harris Teeter, but it's pretty good. And the point is, though, when you watch these commercials, it's like one of these things where you're like, okay, how is that even advertising gas. That doesn't make me like want to go to a gas station. And that's not the point, right? So in this commercial, it was like a whole thing about how BP is cleaning up beaches and all of the good environmental things that BP is doing. And you're like, okay, that's really nice, BP, but I don't care. Like, why, how does this help me figure out what gas I'm going to get or whatever? Which, if you notice, you don't see a lot of advertisements for gas, period. So why is BP even having an advertisement, let alone having an advertisement for its efforts to clean up beaches, right? And this is because, this is like the key message I want you to get. Advertisements are not always trying to sell something. Like, they're not always trying to sell you a product. Sometimes they're trying to sell you a brand. So you'll see these advertisements and they're really generic. Another good example of this is some Calvin Klein ads. Like, they'll like just show a bunch of like, hot, usually very skinny people like walking around without their shirts on. And you're somehow supposed to know that like Calvin Klein wants you to buy jeans or perfume or whatever it is. And you're like, what was that? Well, the truth is, it's not always about selling jeans. It's sometimes just about getting you to feel good about Calvin Klein. It's about how it's going to make you feel emotionally when you see the Calvin Klein logo, right? So this is sort of the last lecture I want you to understand. I have in parentheses emotional branding here because all branding is emotional branding. A lot of people think that branding, a brand is a logo. So I don't know, like, okay, this isn't a great example. Okay, this is a bad example because I don't have a picture of it, but think about, this is my iPhone. Think about the Apple logo, right? Oh, look, it's in the PowerPoint. Think about the Apple logo. That is a logo, but that isn't the brand. Okay, that is a logo associated with the brand. The brand is how this apple makes you feel when you see it. What do you associate with it? Innovation, like hipness or seamless technology or whatever. Clearly, I'm not working on Apple's branding here. Lego, what does it make you feel when you see this bubbly sort of logo? The logo doesn't have anything to do with it except it sort of signifies the brand. The brand is the emotion that people want you to associate it with it. A lot of people who work in branding equate it to sort of a religious experience. It's like they want you to identify with that brand and so much that when you see it or if you were to buy a product from that brand, that it would make you feel somehow and reflect whatever that brand represents to other people, right? That for you. And I like this emotional branding, a process of forming a relationship between a consumer and a product, or brand by provoking their emotions, a relationship, right? Back to the commercial examples, right? And if you choose to write about this, WVU, when they put commercials on TV, it's usually not a commercial that's like, hey, everybody, here's how you can, fill out an application to get admitted to WVU. Or, hey, everybody, here's how you can come to our football games. Like, they don't need to advertise those specific things. All WVU wants to do is sort of have people associate different meanings with the WVU brand. And so the question I want you to think about, especially looking at the commercials or whatever, is what do you think WVU's brand is? What are those associations that the university wants you to feel when you see the flying WV logo or whatever? So, okay, and that's it for now. So I will see you at the next lecture. Okay, bye.